Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Emma. Today I just want to share with you how I go through the process of selecting curriculum, selecting materials for our new upcoming homeschool year. And obviously, even though I have created a few times this video, with the pass of the years, with the experience gained, you always change the method that you use to just go through that process. So usually when I am about to select curriculum, I look to our previous year. Obviously, I look to what we have used in the past and what has worked for us and what not, and how does that applies to the season in which we are at currently. So that is very important for me to be able to just go through all the materials that we have used previously and look to what we think that we have enjoyed, the reasons that we have enjoyed that program, that we have been able to work with that program, as well the reasons why we were not able to work well with that program in the previous years, because sometimes it depends on the season and depends on the maturity of your kid and the maturity of you as a teacher, the experience that you have already as a homeschool teacher, correct? And how that is going to reflect on your new year, correct? Your new season of life. And sometimes we don't want to see that. In fact, those previous thoughts about that particular curriculum or program just change with the pass of the years. And it is very important to recognize that, because obviously our brain has elasticity, and the more you learn, the more you grow as a homeschool parent, as a teacher, then you start switching your way of thinking, and the same goes for your kid. And it is very important to recognize that, to be able to just make a wise decision when it comes to selecting materials for the new upcoming year. I want to preface by saying that no matter how much experience you have, no matter how many years, how many kids, how many of everything, you still are going to make mistakes. You're still going to maybe have some regrets when it comes to certain materials that you have used or that you are using, and it's just part of the experience that you're gaining while you're homeschooling, obviously, your kid. Another thing that I do when I am about to select a new curriculum is just to pray, obviously, before I am going to make a purchase, because I have noticed that in the past, especially at the beginning of our homeschool year, I was just buying, and I am still sometimes making that mistake, which is the reason why I told you what I told you, is that we see something, it is attractive to us as a teacher, but it might not be good for your kid. It might not be good for the type of learning style that your kid has. And I know that some people say that that is a myth, that that is not true. And I understand the reason why, but I really don't agree with that. I think that that is one of the reasons why I decided to homeschool as well. It was because while my kid was in public school, he was just working with materials that were not helpful to him. And I think that one of the reasons why he has been working so well in our homeschool is because I always try to look for materials that go accordingly to his learning style and my learning style as well, which is pretty much almost like his. I tend to be a little bit more on the traditional side, but I still have that visual type of, I don't know, something is appealing to me when it comes to visual curriculum. A lot of color, a lot of details on the images and the pictures or the drawings is just very appealing to me. It's the same way for my son, just changed a little bit when it comes to math. But what I am trying to explain in here is that before you do a purchase, obviously you want to pray and you want to make sure that you're taking the time to actually breathe and making sure that you are doing a retrospection of yourself, and that you just take into account the reasons why you are trying to buy that certain program. Is it something because you are attractive to the way it looks, or if it's something that you really think that is going to be helpful to your kid and to you as a teacher. So you have to be very careful with that, because example, I am going to just talk about myself, obviously. I feel that I tend to go towards curriculum that just kind of like hands hold me a little bit. It gives me instructions and I can just follow those instructions. Obviously, sometimes I just get away a little bit from those instructions and try to accommodate that program or just adapt that program to how we work here in our homeschool. But I usually go through programs that have some type of instruction for the parent, kind of like just to help me out when I need any ideas or just to have clarification on certain areas in our homeschool. So that is one of the things that I like to do, is just to pray before I purchase anything, because I still have programs in here that we haven't even touched, that we haven't even used, and I explained that on the previous video. And I feel like sometimes it is not really because we don't want to use them, but because in the season in life that we were, it was not going to be helpful or convenient for us. So it is very important to pray before you purchase any curriculum. Another thing that I like to do is that I like to go towards the curriculum website and just look at the information of the curriculum. And what a better way to do it than just going straight towards the curriculum website and look at the information of the author, the curriculum, how long it's going to take for you to be able to work with that curriculum. Is it a curriculum that can be adapted? Is it a curriculum that doesn't go well with your worldview, Christian worldview, if you're a Christian? And it's just very important to just make sure that I get that information straight from the website. And then sometimes I like to go here on YouTube or on Instagram and just see how moms work with that program and how the kids work with the program. But remember that when you do that, you have to have in mind as well that, first of all, those are not your kids. Second of all, the way that they might use that program, she might adapt the program to the dynamic of the family at home, and they might adapt that program to if they have multiple kids. And usually when I look at those videos, I try to look at moms that have the same amount of kids that I have. Obviously I have one kid, so that's what I intend to go towards, to look how the kids work with the program. And I feel like that just gives me kind of like an idea, but I try not to do that so much, because I feel like sometimes depends if that mom has an affiliation with the program or no, or if she has multiple kids or no, or depends on the season in life in which she's at, or the situation at their home, that you don't know. Obviously, it's going to differ from what you're going to be doing here in your homeschool and how you're going to be working with that program. So the best solution, I think, it is to just actually go towards their website and just make sure that you're looking to the information that they have already on their website, and that you look and take the time to research on the author's information and why he created that curriculum and the experience that he or she has on creating curriculum for homeschoolers, and as well just making sure that you get all the information that you can before you start purchasing programs. And I know that in the past I have made that mistake as well with a few programs in here, and I'm not going to name those programs, but I noticed that it was because I was just so in a hurry to see what was going to be working with my kid that I really didn't pay attention, and I was not just taking the time to go towards the curriculum's website to make sure that I get that information straight from the website. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper, especially if you are a mom and you're looking for a Christian worldview program. You have to look for that program with more detail and getting information about the author. And I know some people see that as something that is bad, as you're trying to look for or invade the privacy of that person, but I don't think so. I think that is your due diligence to be able to make sure that whatever programmer that you're purchasing and that you're going to be using in your homeschool aligns with your beliefs and aligns with what you want to teach your kid. So that's very important, that you have a discerning mind and making sure that you're going to be able to use that curriculum because you really have an affinity with that curriculum, because you really think that that is going to be helpful and that they're not going to just teach something. You inadvertently are teaching your kids something that really doesn't align with how you view things. And I know that people sometimes call that almost like you're indoctrinating your kid, but I prefer indoctrinating my kid with my beliefs than letting him be indoctrinated with somebody else's belief that will take him apart from having a good relationship with God and with Jesus, and having a good relationship when it comes to his faith. So that is very important for me when I am looking for curriculum. I still have made a mistake sometimes. I'm pretty sure you know that, because I created a video not too long ago. I think I just took it away from my YouTube because I didn't want to just... It was already a lot of videos in regards to that certain program, but I just noticed that lately on the new books, there were some things that were not aligning with how I see things, and I just decided to stop the curriculum completely. At the beginning, with the old versions, I didn't see that much things. Actually, I didn't see anything. But then with the new ones, I started to notice that with some of the examples that they were using to explain kids certain concepts, I noticed that they were just not... I don't know how to explain that. But it is very important that you take the time to actually being able to go through the curriculum's website, and that you look towards the author's information, the biography, or however you want to call it, and that you just make sure that you're taking the time to do that, so you're doing a conscious decision when you're about to just select curriculum for the upcoming year. And that is something that obviously at the beginning, when I start in this journey of homeschooling, I didn't have that experience, and obviously I selected curriculums that when I look now towards the fact that I use them, I'm like, I don't know, I just not agree with my decision at that time. And I think it's very important to always recognize that we are not perfect. We are at some point going to make mistakes, but at the same time, you have to be cautious and you have to learn from those mistakes and try not to do them again. And a good way for that is just if you're taking the time to look for the information in regards to the curriculum before you start purchasing. And I noticed that even in these past years, I started purchasing curriculum without taking really the time, just because I was looking, especially in the area of math and in the area of, I think it's language arts is usually where I focus all my attention, that I start just zigzagging so much with curriculum. And I was just like, at some point, having to sit down and just start processing my decisions. And I noticed that some of those decisions came out of nowhere, meaning I didn't take the time to think twice before I start purchasing curriculum. And then I was just so overwhelmed and so burnt out and frustrated with the materials that we were having and how they were working for us in that season in our homeschool, and as well on how they were working with me as a teacher and with my kid as a student. And I think that was one of the experiences that I have gained lately of all these years of us being homeschooling. And I feel like I still have to go through that process of learning. I think that we are always constantly learning, and no matter how many years of homeschool experience you have, no matter how many kids, you're always going to have that feeling that you're going to be self-doubting yourself, and you're going to be just at some point just thinking, is that a good decision? Have I made a good decision? And that's just normal, because that's you worrying for your kid. That's you worrying for the well-being of your kid and for how you guys are going to be handling things in your homeschool. And it's not good that you try to have everything so perfect to the point that you damage the relationship of you as being the mother of your kid. Okay, that relationship between mom and son or mom and daughter depends on if you have a daughter or you have a son, and you want to keep that relationship, and you want to make sure that you're taking the time to making sure that you're making the right decision when it comes to the curriculum. I feel that lately I see so many moms too here on YouTube talking about how you're going to be able to have the perfect homeschool year, how you can be the perfect homeschool mom, and just selling you this idea of perfection when it comes to homeschooling, and how you have to behave in your homeschool, in your own home, and how you have to being able to behave when it comes to the materials and curriculums that you're using in your home, and how you can run an elite type of school. I have never heard anything like that until recently when I have seen it here on YouTube, and I was just baffled. Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a public school? Are we talking still about homeschool? Or what are we talking about? Because the idea of us, at least that was my idea on subtracting my kid from the public school, it was that I was not going to replicate public school in my home. The idea was that I was going to try to, as much as I can, and it was possible for me to try to be able to select materials that were going to be working very well with his learning style, his type of learning style, and as well with my type of learning style as a teacher. Obviously, there's going to be programs that you're going to have your kid working whether your kid likes it or no. That's just common sense. That just goes, without even having to say it. But at the same time, you're trying to, as much as I can, try to see how you're going to help your kid work with that material. And if you're already constantly pushing, it's going to come to a point where your kid is going to dislike even just the mention of homeschool. And lately, probably I will be talking more about that in another video. I don't know if it's because of my son is in this stage of, teenager years, but sometimes I feel like my patience, being honest, is not there, and I just have to walk away or just put my mind on something else and just trying as much as I can to refocus and start all over again. And that's just the season in which we're at this moment, and I will be talking to you guys about that in another video. But when it comes to selecting curriculum, it's very important as well that you take into account those seasons and those situations in life, and as well that obviously our brain has elasticity, so we're going to be changing with the pass of the years. Even the things that we thought that we were liking it before, we are not liking it now, and so forth. And that is sometimes why you have to be paying a lot of attention when you are about to select curriculum for the upcoming year. Usually, I create kind of like a plan for the rest of the years as well, depending on how I see certain materials, how we are using certain materials here in our homeschool. But if I see that at the end of that homeschool year, after I thought that that program was going to work with us or no, if I see that it's not working, I try to go back again and see the reasons why that program was not working. And after that, look for materials, pray, and decide if I am going to purchase whatever curriculum I will be purchasing, whether it is that I am going to stay using that program and I just tweak or adapt that program if I feel like I can adapt it or tweak it, or if I decide to completely change the program. So that is very important, that you're always going through the curriculum's website, that you pray before you purchase any curriculum, and that you really take your time and actually go back to what you have done previously and see how that program was working for you in that season, for your kid in that season in life, and how does that is going to compare with the season in which you're at the moment. It's just a matter of just taking the time, praying, and making sure that you're not in a hurry when you're about to purchase curriculum. I already made that mistake, and I am just, with some of the materials, I am just trying to see how I can tweak and adapt, so I don't have that feeling that I am just wasting more money by purchasing more curriculum just because I made that mistake already. But because I want to as well teach him that sometimes, whether you feel like you like it or not, you have to go through it. Example, my son doesn't like writing. Very soon I will finish this video because it's taking long. But my son is not in the like too much of writing. And we have gone through, I think, a few programs already. And I just help him by saying, look, we have gone through maybe 3 or 4 programs already. You need to make up your mind. We are not going to be keeping switching curriculums. I already tried different learning styles with you. Which one do you think you work the best? And usually that just helps him figure out when it comes to what are we going to be using for writing for the upcoming year, or if we have to change completely or just adapt the curriculum that we were using or so forth. You know what I just explained to you guys already. So I hope this video is helpful. I hope it just gives you an idea on how I work with when I am about to select curriculum. I always have a notebook where I just make notes, and I try to create schedules to see how that will work with the season in which we're at. As well, I like to see what materials we're about to be finishing completely. If so, if they're going to be moving towards the next year or no, or if I am going to be purchasing new materials, if I am going to be switching, and for what I am going to be switching, how that material works before, and so forth when I am about to select new curriculum. So I hope this video is helpful. If it is, please don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them down below. I will see you then. Bye bye.